Masechet Shevuot Daf Rima Amud Aleph, 4 lines down. We answered one question about the Mishnah, and now we move on to the next. Mishnah Hachad the Tana Lehu. How come by our Mishnah over here, the Tana said that there's two that equals four. However, Mishnah Gabe Yesiot Shabbat Umarot Negaim, but by the Mishnayot that mentions Shabbat and the Mishnayot that mentions Sarat, right, which we quoted here, but initially mentioned elsewhere. Look, it doesn't mention it over there. It doesn't go into details. Where it says Amri, we say Shevuot v'diot tum'ah degabetet diktivim. Halacha of the swearing and the tum'ah because they're next to each other in the Pesukim. V'damyan hadad v'korban olav. They both have a similarity. They both have the variable korban, the korban that depends on your wealth. Tanahu legabetet. Therefore, we mention next to each other. V'ayde tanagatet. Since we mentioned two, Tanakul mentioned other ones as well. Right? Once you mention two cases that has two that equals four, we mention all. Petach b'shvuot mefresh Tumah. One second, the Tanakh starts off talking about Shavuot, swearings, and also just starts digressing to Tumah. Why not first talk about Shavuot first? The Gemara says, since Tumah is very, very few nuances, Pasik sharelu, we wanted to quickly knock it out, finish it off, and then continue. Then we mentioned swearing, because swearing has a lot of details, and therefore it would have taken a long time to finish, so therefore we knocked out Tumah, and then went to swearing. Okay. Shevuot Shtaim Shein Arba. Now we're going to talk about the two that equals four. We already talked about it in general. Now we're going to go into details. The swearing two that equals four. Shtaim She'ochel F'Shorachel. First of all, the main two is the swearing that he'll eat or not eat something. Shein Arba, which equals four. Achalti V'Shlo Achalti. Then in past tense, he's swearing that he ate something or he did not eat something. Yediyot Tumah Shtaim Shein Arba. The two main tumah that equals four. Shtaim Yediyat Tumat Kodesh V'Yediyat Tumat Mechdash. The two main ones is whether he was aware of Tumah before eating something kadosh, or aware of Tumah that before he went into the Beit HaMikdash. Shein arba kodesh u'mikdash, and you add another two, whether he was eating a regular holy thing or entering a place that is the Beit HaMikdash area. Okay. Yesiot Shabbat Shtayim Shein arba, the transferring of Shabbat. There's two that equals four, we said as well. So over here, whenever it talks about private property and public property, it mentions it like a poor person, which is referring to a poor person is referring to public, and the balabait is referring to private. So the main two is from private to public, from either public or private. Or it also could be the next two, which is bringing into private from public or bringing into private from public. Okay, marod negaim shnaim shen arba sarat, two that equals four. The main two is shnaim se'et ubaheret. The two main spots are types of sarat are se'et and baheret. Shehen arba'a se'et v'tudat baheret v'tudat. The four is that the se'et has a subdivision one, and the baheret has its own subdivision. According to Lo Rabbi Yishmael, the Lo Rabbi Akiva doesn't fit either of them. The Rabbi Yishmael, according to Yishmael, doesn't make sense. He holds a swearing, the only chayav for future swearings, and therefore we said it would be chayav in our Mishnah for past. That wouldn't fit. Rabbi Akiva would say the only chayav that if you are not sure about tumah, but you won't be chayav if you forgot that the item is kadosh or you forgot that was the Beit HaMikdash. Both don't fit. Where it says ibat imar rishma, ibat Akiva, we can answer both according to we could answer both according to both opinions. Meaning, ibat imar rishma, you can say maybe our author is a Ishmael. Mehen lehiyub mehen l'ptor. When it says two that equals four, means sometimes you're chayav, sometimes you're patur from a korban. But then Rabbi Kiva would say mehen lehiyub mehen l'ptor. Sometimes you're chayav, sometimes you're patur. What does that mean? L'ptor mean you're patur, completely impossible. Hadum yad marot negaim tani. Our Mishnah mentioned it alongside and compared it to cases of tzarat. Ma hatam kulu lehiyuva achalena mitzvah. Just like over there, tzarat in all four cases. So too over here, be chayav in all four cases. When did he say not chayav? Is when the past is regarding korban. But the past swearing falsely, you would be chayav malkut. Like according to Rava, the Torah specifically included false swearing, like a false like a pointless swear. Mashav le'sha'avar af shekel nam shekel, which is like a pointless swear is to the past. So too, a false swear is also regarding to the past, and you'd be chayav. Okay. It makes sense to say that if he swore I ate or I didn't eat, then he gets malkut, like Rabbi said. Shelo ochal ve'achal nami. And also, if he said I will not eat and he did eat it, that's also lav sheyesh bo ma'aseh. Who had something that's involving an action. And the ocher v'lo achal nami. But why would you be chayav? You said I will eat and then you don't eat. Lav she'en bo ma'aseh. Who it's an act, it's an avirah, it's an isur. That there's no action. It's a passive isur. But it says, because what Bishma, Lav Shein Lumasa looking up. We say, no, Bishma, hold it. You hold that. Even in that case, you get Malkut. When I say, Yachi, that's the case. Kasha de Yochanan against Yochanan himself. How? Remember Rabbi Yochanan, Chakista Mishnah, we said Rabbi Yochanan holds like the regular unknown Mishnah, which means unknown author Mishnah, anonymous Mishnah. The Marna said elsewhere, Shevuot Daf kikar zayim. If someone swears, I will eat this loaf of bread today, the Avar Hayom lo achan doesn't eat it. Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish Damar Teva, no, okay, they both hold it. You don't get a Malkut. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, and okay, Rabbi Yochanan says you don't get Malkut. Shemush Mutav L'Maseh. There's no action. Hoshim Maseh looking up, and therefore you don't get Malkut. Resh Lakish Amar, Rabbi Lakish says, okay, you don't get Malkut. Hatar Asafeku, because it's a questionable warning. Hatar Asafek Losh Mehadaran, therefore is not considered a real warning. We have this in Masechet Malkut, meaning when he is warned or when he's starting the issue, there is no guarantee that he will be failing this. And since there's no guarantee that he'll be failing this, since there's no guarantee that he will be failing and not that he won't be eating it, therefore if it's not good warning, not enough to give him makut. But regardless, we see from here that he doesn't get makut if it's a non-actionable item. Rabbi Yochanan found a different Mishnah that he holds like. High stomach. So what's that Mishnah? Ilay my high stomach. If you want to say this, the following Mishnah, the Tanan, Ava hamotir betahor. Someone needs leftover meat from a Quran Pesach overnight, and the meat's a tahor. Ba'ashavar tameh, he breaks the bone of the Pesach that's tameh. And both of them are so. And okay, maybe he doesn't get malkut. Based on Shavar tameh, makes sense why he does not get malkut when he broke the bone that's tameh. When it says the pasuk says you can't break the bone of the Quran Pesach, one bad tahor one. If you left over kasher or meat Pesach offering overnight, why are you not chayav if it's tahor? Lav mishum must be the have lav shem maaseh. It's a non-actionable isur. Bechol lav shem maaseh and lokin lav yom malkut. The Gemara says mimai did Rabbi Yaakov. Who says it's according to Rabbi Yaakov? Damar lav shem maaseh has to do with the fact that it's non-actionable. Dilma Rabbi Yudah, maybe the country that Mishum the Habad Ketov Diten Aseh Halot Aseh Halav Hachanami Halav Hachilaki. Maybe the reason why you're not chayav is because the pasuk gives you a positive commandment afterward, and therefore, which is what the pasuk says that if you leave over the meat, you should burn it. So we learned according to Rabbi Yehuda that if the pasuk gives a remedy, a way to fix the situation, if you fix the situation, you're patur. And therefore, if left over the meat, the pasuk says burn it, you don't get malkut. But had not been for that reason, then you would be chayav malkut, even though it's non-actionable. It's not approved. The Gemara says at the Tanya, okay, we're in Berta. Pasuk says if you leave it over, you should burn it. We're now recording it. Back to the thing, we see a positive commandment after the Isur. Who's there? That's not the reason why. There's no action. So that's not a proof that we go according to this Mishnah. So with which anonymous Mishnah that Rabbi Yochanan would find that there's no malkut, you're patur. You're patur, no action. The guy swears he's not going to eat the loaf of bread, or swear that he will not eat it, which is in general not another swearing. Then he eats it. You only have on one, because the second swearing was general. Like, I'm not going to eat it. Instead of saying this is bread. This type of swearing is one's chayav for malkut for violating it. And if you did it by mistake, you'd get the variable korban. So now, what does it mean that Mishnah said that this is the isur that you'll get malkut for? But if the guy makes his regular swearing, I will not eat it. If he swears regular, I will not eat it, and he ends up eating it. No lucky, he doesn't get malkut. because if you don't get malkut for something that you do passively and no action. Let's see. Haistama v'haistama. We have two mishnayot without author. Both of them are anonymous. Why did Rabbi Yochanan say to go this according to the second one, that you don't get malkut unless there's an action? Maybe you should go according to our Mishnah, that you can get malkut even though there's no action. According to your reasoning, all right, according to your reasoning, it's a good question. But at the same time, why did it be done as C when he was formulating the Mishnayot? Usually he formulates the Mishnayot and he does not put an author, he puts it stam, no author, if he holds like that. So why would it be done as C himself when he's formulating the Mishnayot? He does one stam, one anonymous without Malkut, and one anonymous with Malkut. It must be rather, it must be initially he held no action, no Malkut. Sorry, you do get makut. Ustama, that's why he made it initially in our Mishnah that you get makut in the first. And later on in the Mishnah, later on that he held that you don't get makut, he retracted, he fixed it in the second Mishnah. In the Mishnah, we don't change things retroactively and therefore we keep it as is, but really he retracted and he now, Rabbi Danasi now holds and made, that's why he made the second Mishnah, stam, that you don't get makut if there's no action.